Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our sixth webinar as a part of our Choose France Tour, the ongoing Choose France Tour, the first edition for 2021. And welcome to our session on CV and SOP. Now, as much as I can imagine, this would be one of the most interesting sessions for all of our students, and I'm sure for all the right reasons. Having the perfect CV and having a great SOP, an impressive SOP is quite important as a part of your application to universities, and it's quite useful as well in the long run when you apply for jobs, internships, or if you reach out to professionally to other people once you graduate. So today my colleague Mrs. Vasudha Murali Krishna, who's the Campus France Manager in Hyderabad, and I'm Rachid Dhawan, the Campus France Manager in Delhi. We're here to tell you everything about what makes a good CV and SOP. Both of these things are quite crucial and quite important. And at any point, this is actually the first step before that you have to get an updated CV and have a very brilliantly written SOP that is impressive to anybody who reads it and would like to have you as a part of their school or would like to offer you a job as well. So both of these things are quite useful and very important, and we'll take you through our journey and our understanding of both CV and SOP, and try to bring out all kinds of elements that you should keep in mind while drafting both a CV and SOP. The whole idea behind this webinar is not just to give you factual knowledge as to what makes a good CV and SOP, but also give you insight stories. Both Vasudha and I have seen innumerous amounts of CVs and SOPs in our professional career, and we're happy to share the kind of examples we have seen of great CVs and excellently well-written SOPs as well. So we'll dedicate our session to both of these things, and let's take it ahead right away. We have a very drafted presentation to share with you today, which will help us tell you more about CV and SOP both. So let's have a look at our presentation. So to start with, we'd like to address the idea that a CV and SOP both are actually very important. We tried mentioning the role of a CV and SOP is not only when you're applying for a higher education program or if you're trying to reach out to university, but the role is very important when it comes to applying for internships, when you're looking for a job. Could be during a program, could be after the program, or could be some industrial projects that you might want to do as a part of your program. It could also be for research work as well, because when you apply for research work and you want to reach out to a professor, it is very important to present an updated CV, because it is your impression, it is your entire profile on a piece of paper. So it has to be very catchy, it has to be very interesting, and it's quite important because it is really a first impression about you. And indeed, a CV and SOP is quite useful when you're applying to the higher education programs in France. The schools as the first thing. So for them, this is their first reaction to seeing you, and it is very important for them to address this. So it is extremely important to speed date and update your CV. The whole idea is that every achievement, every accomplishment, everything you have done, a professional project, a personal project, must be highlighted on the CV and SOP. So it's very useful to add all kinds of information, but it is also very important to keep relevant information alive, because that is what matters while you're doing the applications, while you're reaching out to schools. They need to know what makes the application valuable, why a school should look out to invest as a part of their procedures, and why they should be going ahead with the application and look at your application favorably. But also it is a good way for them to know what can they look forward to when they do take you as a student, or when they do hire you, or when they do recruit you. What kind of skills can you bring on board? What kind of values can you bring on board when you're going ahead with such kind of a CV and SOP? So it's really a very important, both these documents are quite important as a part of your process. And even more important these days is that even though things have changed, we have gone digital, and we try our best to make our CV and SOP look very attractive. But actually, a CV and SOP has to be written very differently when it comes to different kinds of projects, and that is what I'm going to help you more about today. So let's try discussing more about the SOP first, and then we'll come to CV with Vasudha, and this way we can join both of them together and bring you the importance and share interesting insights about them.
Sure.
So, as many CVs we have seen, Vasudha would agree to this as well, it always has to be a short document. It cannot be a very long document.
Yes, Rachit, for sure.
And absolutely what is more important is that this document has to respect a certain word limit. Not not exceed the word limit that should be prescribed. So if it's a CV, like 5 pages of CV, it's too much for anyone to read, grasp, or go through. Even 3 to 4 pages is quite a lot. So try to make a CV or an SOP as a 1 to 2 page document. The SOP should clearly bring out why are you writing this statement of purpose. It should have its purpose. I mean, that's the whole idea behind writing the SOP. It should really bring out the whole fact that it's a quick introduction about you, your life. You're presenting yourself, what have you done, and what makes you as a suitable candidate. Right? So it's quite important to make it sound like you're the deserving candidate when you're writing a SOP across. And the whole idea is that the SOP opens doors because it is your first impression when you reach out to schools and when you reach out to a prospective employer. So it has to be a very precise and concise document. It cannot be a document which is quite lengthy, quite detailed, and it cannot be a generalized document. So, we tend to at times use the same CV or same SOP for many applications. Sometimes even for SOP, we've seen students end up writing the same kind of motivation. Now, when you do that, what happens is you're not able to clearly identify and connect with the reader. So when the reader is actually going through your SOP and they're trying to make out that this is what you've written, this is what you've described, they don't feel the kind of association because every school, every job profile is different, and there's certain things about every program, every particular, for example, you want to do something in supply chain management, but at the same time, you're also applying for general MIM programs. Now, when you are applying for something like a specialization, an MSc in supply chain management, it's very important to talk about supply chain management. Why doesn't it interest you? How will it be useful for you? And the SOP should clearly bring out these things, because if in the absence of these things, it's very it seems like your SOP is not clear about why you're applying to this program. In a similar way, when you're applying to jobs as well, it's quite important to identify the kind of work you would be expected to do and how do you match up the same skills. It's almost like you have to tell them what makes you as a deserving candidate, because you do possess certain number of skills. And this is a great way to introduce, because your CV, it's a summarized form of everything you've done till date. But what's even more important is that the SOP can bring out the real you. It can bring out more elaborative answers about what have you done in the past. And it is also quite useful in terms of bringing out an introduction as to what you have done previously as well. So we definitely recommend that the SOP is a very important document to keep it short, precise, and very much apt to the kind of profile you would like to apply to. Now, why is an SOP so important? Because, there are pieces of you written on the SOP that you're trying to give the reader an idea about. But the idea is that, we really want to know about your academic background. So the SOP should definitely start and open with giving a very brief and very easy to understand and grasp background of where you come from. So at this point, mention what have you studied, where do you come from, where did you study it? So let's say if you've done a master's program already in India and you've studied IIM, perhaps, like IIM Ahmedabad or IIM Rohtak, you can mention I've done a master's from here, I've done a bachelor's. So go in the reverse chronology, because it's always good to put the most recent achievement that way and then go back all the way to your grade 12. And in between, if you have interned at places, because it's quite good that your programs allow you to do internships, it's very important to mention your background, the track, the kind of academic track you've had to reach up to this, now apply for this program. So this is a very important attribute. And another important fact is that, when you're writing SOP, and we just mentioned a few minutes ago, try not to make a generalized SOP for all kinds of applications or all kinds of programs, because really it is to illustrate what sets you apart, what makes you very different from all other candidates that they're going to meet. And the whole idea is to try to identify elements about the program or the job profile that you know about, because it's a good way to actually see whether you know about a certain program or not. Your knowledge of the program, the school, the benefits that can come from the school is very important. These are, I think, very important things to highlight, and they're very important to bring out as a part of your application. And it sets your application apart because you're able to show that you know what you're applying into. It shouldn't appear that it's a very generalized document, because when it becomes a generalized document, the mistake that we make is that we don't end up being clear. And when I read a generalized document, I feel, oh, it could be for so many things, but why specifically for our school, or why specifically for the job that we have posted about? So the whole idea is that you need to understand what is the person on the other side looking for in a candidate, in an employee that they would like to hire. And that understanding will help you write an excellent SOP. So determining that you're a good match for the program is very important, and that is what I was trying to illustrate. Use relevant examples as a part of your SOP, because the SOP is more of your personalized way of telling the employer or the school why you're perfect or apt and deserving for this program or the job post. And at that point, you need to really give out reasons that I possess this skill, I possess this, I have these interests, I'm quite motivated to learn about these areas, and this is how it would help me in the long run. The very knowledge of you, knowing your future projects, your future aspirations, is a very strong indicator of your motivation. And I can tell you, in France, with French companies, even when you reach out to schools, in general as well, this is a very strong factor in seeing whether a candidate is suitable for a certain profile or not. So definitely, this is something that definitely helps you become a good match and to impress the reader on the other side. As a school, if you're looking at applications, we definitely want to know how much do you know about the school and the program, and why particularly you want to apply to this program. You are able to tell us about why you want to apply for a certain program, that makes the SOP a lot more stronger as well. So while writing the SOP, remember the language, the way you write it is quite important. Your expressions, the kind of delivery you make as a part of the SOP is quite useful as well. It shows your ability to communicate and how it will be because what you put on paper should also be in person as well. It should be a reflector of both ways, because employers and school representatives genuinely do check the CV and expect to see the same things when they meet the person. And it's very important to keep that as a very honest attribute, because you must be able to show your communication style, your ability while writing SOP. This is a very important part, because without this, you don't come across as a very genuine person. And it's very important when you're applying to schools to keep genuinity, because without this, it appears that this could be taken from somewhere. It could be plagiarized. It probably was written by someone else. So to avoid these kind of doubts in the mind of the reader, you must try to give out an idea about how you do communicate. What kind of things do you keep in mind when you are at the workplace, or when you are a suitable classmate, or as a part of the classroom. You can put down personal experiences you've had in the past, so that it gives an idea about how it brought you to finding this program, doing this program at this point of time. And this way you can show a good ability to actually reach out and communicate with the school. So when you're writing SOP, please keep these different points that we brought out in mind, and definitely make your recipe a lot more interesting.
Rachit, at this point, can I just add one thing?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Rachit, when we are talking about SOP writing, I have always seen students start off with something like, for example, especially with aeronautics and things related to that field, they start off saying, when I saw an aeroplane fly over my head, I started my dream. These are very general things. These are the things that maybe the dream started with that. But SOP is also a place where they have to be realistic. They'll have to be very precise. They have to keep a balance between their dreams, their passion, and what they want to achieve. I guess this is what I had to add.
It's a very important attribute what Vasudha brought out, because what you're putting on paper should appear realistic. That is the balance you need to make, that it shouldn't end up being very dreamlike, as Vasudha said. Though there is nothing wrong in having dreams, I mean, that's quite an important thing. But the point is, when you have to reach out, you have to be very specific as to why you're writing this SOP. If it appears as aspirations and dreams and too much, and not really focusing on what's asked, it appears the reader loses interest, because they can never know the personal aspirations you have from a very personal point of view. They want to know it from a point of view they are also able to assimilate. That is a very important attribute. So keep that in mind while you're writing SOP. But we'll bring out interesting do's and don'ts for you in the next slide and give you a context on how it works to write a SOP. So the SOP is quite straightforward, and this is, I think, what everybody would want to know, the format, how it works. Remember, as we said, as Vasudha also mentioned, it is not a self-introduction. We are not, you do not introduce yourself when you're writing a SOP. Your CV can give everything, every knowledge about you. You know, what languages you speak, where have you worked, what have you studied, where do you come from, your address, your contact information. Your CV tells us everything. So we don't want the same self-introduction when you write the SOP. Your SOP should definitely start by introducing which field are you really interested in, and to strike the perfect balance between, you know, the realistic component and the aspirations, because this is where you can bring out the academic field, where what you're really genuinely interested in. Express why it interests you. It's very important to highlight that this field is interesting for me because of so and so reason. If I'm interested in understanding more and learning more about physics or chemistry, or if I want to get into management, if I want to do something like cuisine, or want to become a chef, you know, I need to give suitable, interesting reasons as to why it interests me. Now, it can't be, as Vasudha said, that because when I saw something, I felt this was the thing that I wanted to do, or something. Though that could be a reason, but you know, it's not good enough for it to be a reason to join a school or pursue the program. You have to make it a good enough reason so that they understand and they know what you're really talking about, and you have good awareness about the kind of program you wish to apply to. And what makes you a good candidate? So the introduction should also cover the point where, why do you wish to be in this domain? Why do you wish to be in this industry? Why does this industry seem interesting to you? So if you're joining something in finance and management, you should have good knowledge about why it is, what are you looking to derive out of this program. If you want to get into a sector which definitely has a very strong component, for example, research work done in chemistry or space sciences or any of these areas, you must show that you have knowledge about these areas at the same point of time to look authentic. So it's very important that the introduction paragraph should not be purely about you in the self-introduction. Don't give us facts which we can see from the CV. Introduce your area of interest, introduce why and how it interests you, and tell us, why do you want to do this particular field? Why do you want to get into this field?
Yes.
And give an opportunity to give your background out. And I think, Vasudha, you wanted to add something?
No, please go ahead. It's going perfectly well. I think all these things are important, and give special attention to what you want to say in a way that interests the reader.
Absolutely. And the next component of your CV should give a brief about your background. So remember, this is not a summary of your CV, but you have to keep it very realistic. So just very simple words about your academic information. Where did you last study? What kind of industrial exposure? So you don't say, I worked at this profile at this company. It shouldn't be very, simple words everyone can get. Try to be more expressive. You can say things like, oh, I've had the good opportunity to be exposed to big journalism houses like these and these media houses, and this is what I've been able to gain. Or I've had the exposure to reach out and work in laboratories like cosmetics or something, and I've had the experience from there where I learned and picked up a skill. It seems a lot more expressive as to what you learned. And it's important, for us to know things that you actually carry with you, the legacy that you carry with you once you've finished a profile. The job title and role is just put on paper, but really it's not something what you tell around to people. What you tell around to people is what you actually picked up from there and you've carried with you, and you will bring it to the next place you go to, which will be the school or the employer. If you have some professional experience, it's good to highlight this way at this point of time. And it's a good idea, your SOP can also quickly mention a bit more about some kind of extracurricular activities if you have done as a part of your undergraduate program or your master's program. But it doesn't have to be something very vague like reading books or watching movies, which are things we do for pleasure. So they shouldn't be a part of the SOP because it doesn't help me know anything more about you. It's great you do that, but it doesn't help me anything, on the academic front. So try to write extracurriculars. If you have learned a new language, if you have picked up some computer skills, if you have picked up certain kinds of skills on the job while you were doing an internship, these are great things to highlight in the background paragraph. And quickly move down to the point, why are you applying for this particular program? So this is where we mentioned that having knowledge about the curriculum or the kind of things that the program offers is very important at this point. And if you are able to actually bring out the course curriculum, it's a great idea to actually show why do you want to do this particular program. Explain us what skills will you be able to learn as a part of the program you wish to apply to, and why you want to pursue this program. So why this course is a very important paragraph. And quickly come down to the point that what you're looking to do in the long run. So the career goals have to be very clearly defined. You must be able to portray long-term plans. It doesn't have to be very long, but the long-term plans should be very clear as to, for example, I want to study something in agro industry or something. If I want to get into agriculture, I should be knowing why I want to actually get into this field. If I'm looking to work with firms like Nestle or Danone or something like that, why am I looking to get into this kind of an industry? If I'm trying to, like, as was used an example of aeronautics, you would know that France is a leader in this field, and Airbus comes from France. The city of Toulouse has various firms and various jobs that it generates within the system. These things, mentioning them, how it would be for you when you actually get there, what kind of jobs would you like to do is very important. At this point, and as a general advice, as a part of your SOP, do not talk about staying in France as staying in France for very long. That, oh, I would like to spend the next 5-6 years or 10 years or 15 years. It sounds vague. It's not very clear, because we want to know what you would like to do, not in general where you would like to be. These days, it's honestly, the aspiration is a lot more global. So everyone's looking out for things that take them places. We don't want to be limited to where we are as well. So try not to talk about staying somewhere too long, because it gives a dual motive behind it. I mean, it doesn't give us a very clear idea as to why are you looking to do this program. And come down towards the last part of your SOP by saying that why are you applying to this particular university? And how will studying with these professors, how will the exposure that you would gain from this university be useful in the long run? Read through everything you have done, and in the concluding paragraph, sum up everything you have written. Sum up everything that you've mentioned in the background, and why this course, and career goals, why this university. Do not at this point write anything about financial assistance or asking for a scholarship, because an SOP is not for those things. You will get an opportunity to request for these things at different places as a part of your application, but the SOP is not that place, because at first they're only looking to admit you. They're not looking to award you the scholarship at the same point of time. It doesn't work like that. So the scholarship has its own application, and a different kind of SOP has to be drafted for scholarship. So we'll come to that later as well. But please keep the format in mind, because it must cover all of these things. Vasudha, are you good? I mean, you agree what we discussed? Interesting
yes,
points you want to raise?
just one thing, Rachit, at this time, when you're doing an SOP, it is always good to have a positive attitude, and in the language too, you will have to be positive. Try to avoid all the negative words. I'm not saying that you'll have to be fake. I'm not saying that everybody is totally made up of positive things, but even when there is a negative thing that you want to put it up, it is better to put it up in a positive way. For example, if I have a shortcoming, if I want to say that this course is going to help me overcome this, that means they'll know that you're being genuine. You know what your weakness is. And with this course, you're trying to make it up. You're trying to make sure that you learn and cross that obstacle. So that way, you are putting yourself in a very positive way, and it really helps people to know these small little things. I guess that's about it, Rachit.
That's very important as well. The whole idea, I mean, we will summarize it for you very clearly. What are the do's and don'ts for when you're doing the SOP? So always remember that, let's do the do's first, because we want to be positive, as Vasudha said, and you need to be focused when you're doing this kind of an application. So remember, the SOP should be an easy to read document. For me, it should not be a struggle to read your SOP. It should be, I read it, I enjoy reading it, and absolutely, I know a lot more about you. So it should be read in a very smooth manner. It should not have, the language should not break in between. The events should not break in between. So you don't talk about future aspirations right away. You go in the sequence, build up your SOP that it leads to the final thing. The conclusion is very important. So make sure things that we highlighted in the previous format, like the academic background, your future aspirations, very important to make sure they are mentioned there. Try to switch between an active voice and keeping a positive tone while you're writing. As Vasudha very clearly mentioned, positive tones are a very good way to write SOP. It's very impressive when we read a very positive SOP, because we're instantly we look forward to meeting you. Instantly we're very excited to know that, okay, this is an interesting profile and they would like to go ahead. And these are very important attributes. So try to keep a positive tone, use active voice. Please try not to keep a passive voice while you're writing the SOP. So try to use an active voice. Reread your SOP a couple of times so you know there are no grammatical errors, there are no expression errors, the language is consistent, very straightforward as well. Brings out a very honest idea about who you are and why are you writing this SOP. So please, the do's are very important, and remember all of these things. With do's always comes the don'ts, and it's very important to know that there are things you should know as a part of your SOP. So please try your best, and well, not only try your best, just don't do them. So the first is, please don't exceed the word limit. Don't go on writing a very long SOP. Do not make it a story. It shouldn't be a difficult read for the person going through. Sometimes, schools, employers receive hundreds of applications. It's not possible for them to read through everything with the same kind of intensity as you put in. You probably would have spent days, weeks writing all of this stuff together. But if it's too long, too inaccessible, it's not useful for us. For us, we want something that that would also give us the kind of idea behind you writing this application, but not in a very long and elaborate manner. It's not a thesis, so you need to remember that. Do not use the same SOP, something what I highlighted shortly before as well. We end up making this mistake a lot of times. We have seen students who apply to several programs, several schools as well, and they end up writing a very similar SOP. I understand that once you've written a good SOP, you feel your job's done, and it really feels like climbing a mountain and you've really achieved something great, but it's really not the end. When you're doing the hard work, it's good to do it with all your intent and honesty. And it wouldn't hurt to write. I'm not saying that every word has to be different, all your SOPs should be different, but at least the main context of writing the SOP should be different. It should pertain to the schools. Everything we just told you, it should pertain to the schools, the field, the kind of position, what kind of university, school you're applying to. It should pertain to that. So please try your best to differentiate the different SOPs you write to the various schools. No to plagiarism. Do not copy SOPs from other students, because a lot of times what happens is we know other students who would like to apply to. We probably find some SOPs online. We probably reach out to a mentor or a colleague who probably will share their SOP. And we end up thinking, great, this is excellently well written, very impressive, I'll use this. Or sometimes, we find SOPs of, I think, alumni, like previous students, and we feel, oh, great, they have used it, it worked, I will use the same. Remember, the reader is not always same. Remember, time changes and expressions change. The kind of things we mention change. The skills you have change. So you're not the same person you were. At times we can't even use a CV SOP we had probably 1 year ago or 6 months ago. It doesn't feel relevant because when you wrote it, you were in a different frame of mind. You had different skills and different things to bring out, and it's impossible to take them ahead at that point of time. So please try your best to not copy them. Do not mention your achievements, your interest in applying to other schools or other countries, because honestly, it's not relevant for them to know this. And please do not mention your IELTS or GRE or DELF. You can use your CV to highlight these things, but honestly, your SOP is not the place to highlight scores. Good academic performance does not mean everything. What is really matters, especially in trans, is your motivation. Yes. Your zest to do the program, to move ahead, is what you can really keep in mind.
Absolutely. Right, Vasu? Absolutely. At this time, I just want to tell you that SOP is not written in a day. It'll take some time. The way we evolve every day, the way we make sure that we are evolving and becoming better. SOP is also a document that has to be given that kind of time. So once you write it, keep the skeleton SOP, keep the skeleton intact, and depending upon for what you're applying, add the muscle and the mass at a later stage, which is very pertinent to what you are applying for. Evolving is the mantra, and then that's how you go about it. Right, Rachit?
Very good. It's absolutely correct. So just the last thing I want to tell you before we close the SOP part and we move on to CV is that while you're writing an SOP, please try to focus on certain areas, especially when it comes to internships and jobs. Because for what we know, I mean, everything we shared with you really does apply to universities and internships and jobs both. But there's some more specific things you address when you're writing it for an internship or a job profile, is that you should have the reason why do you wish to apply for this particular job, how will it be useful for you, and it should be also a brief articulation of your interests, your goals, and where you want to see yourself in the future. The future aspirations must be a part of the SOP. Your reason for applying to this job could be a profession, be a certain role that interests you, could be an upgrade to a certain kind of profile. Mention how did you get interested in this. You know, we don't just end up doing jobs because we're just looking to be somewhere. We want to be passionate about the kind of work we do. So it's very important to try identifying the reason.
Very true.
To complement your efforts, whatever you do the SOP, write your strengths, your experiences, and the closing should be how the company can benefit from hiring you, which we highlighted before as well. So very important to cover these reasons as well when you're doing the internships or job SOPs. And these are important factors because it will make your profile resonate with the employer, very importantly. So this is what we had to share about SOPs. We'll talk about CVs, and Vasudha will give us a very detailed analysis about what makes a good CV.
Thank you, Rachit. And now let's go to CV. We have little time, but I'll try to make that as interesting as possible for you. Now, CV is a document which has to be with a clean and forward approach. You can now own your aspirations through this particular document called CV. Now, 1 page, maximum 2 page is the document. Nobody has that kind of time to go through. CV is all about facts. The facts will take as low as 6 seconds. Average time to do a perusal of a CV is 6 seconds. So in these 6 seconds, you will have to impress the person who's looking at your CV with quite many things. Now, how to go about it and what are the things that we need to do? Let's go trace it. Now, the aim is to develop interest in your profile. Now, for that to happen, it has to be concise, clear, catchy, and quite many other things. All the way, then it has to be the best way to catch and go to the next document. First, it would be the CV that they'll look at. Within those 6 seconds, your CV will have to catch their interest. It will have to be in tray and not in pubel. As we say, pubel is the waste basket. So that will have to make it into the in tray. After that, for a detailed description about yourself, they'll take up your SOP. So this is the first intro to yourself. Coming to the next thing, can we go to the next slide, Rachit? When your CV should be clear, concise, catchy, and organized. It should look appealing to the eye. Leveraging all these modern fonts. Don't go for obnoxious or unreadable fonts, which are not really good. It has to be catchy, but it doesn't have to be flamboyant, is what I would want to say. It is good. And then with good use of the white paper. CV is a white paper, right? So you'll have to use it in such a way that it really catches the person who's looking at it within those 6 seconds. Average is what I'm saying, 6 seconds when I mention. Within those 6 seconds, they'll have to say, oh yes, this is something that we would want to have a look at in greater detail. So they go to the SOP part of it. Firstly, how to go about it? The first thing on a CV is who you are. That is your personal details. Name, obviously, and your phone number, that is the mobile number. If you have a landline number, it is always good to have another number, an alternate number 2, because when somebody tries to reach you, if they're not able to, then there's an alternate number 2. So that one, and then comes email ID, of course. At this junction, I would really want to mention, I might think I'm the Wonder Woman, nobody else other than me, but that is my personal thing. So when you are approaching, when you're putting an email ID on your CV or your SOP or whatever, please make it professional. It can't be, I am Wonder Woman so and so. We have seen so many people write about them being the James Bonds and whatnot. It just doesn't, people won't take you seriously if you write such things. So it is good to have. When we created our Gmail IDs, we were very young, we were passionate about it, we had so many other things to think about. That's okay. But these days we have a professional email ID too. So please make sure you put it in a professional format. And then comes your professional experience and things. It is always better to go in a reverse chronological CV format, as Rachit said a bit some time back. That is, it is by far the best that you can do, because it will give whatever you have achieved very recently in life, that will be highlighted first. Now, when I say put professional experiences, educational qualifications, skills, competencies, etc. At least in a French format, it is only till your 12th or intermediate or PUC or whatever you call that, we are +2, we are looking at. Don't go far behind in your life. We are not interested whether you won a lemon and a spoon race or something, that you achieved it and came first in your second grade or something. No, those are all very good things in life. We remember, all of us have some fond memories about that. Let us keep it to fond memories. What is relevant is what we have to put it here. So reverse chronological order will give them that thing, that is especially your professional experiences, internships, if you have done educational qualifications. And when you're putting, I personally feel that when you're putting your educational qualifications, if you can put it in a tabular form, it is easy to grasp rather than reading the whole sentence, like the year that you passed out, the university from which you passed out, the percentage or CGPA. Is very easy to go through that. So a tabular form is something that is very good. Okay, now coming to the next thing, if we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, I'll just briefly take you through what an English CV looks and what the French people are used to, or what we are used to. As we were telling you, your SOP is the thing where you are, you're highlighting all the things that are not put in the CV. It has to be sentences and paragraphs. CV is your fact, what you have achieved and where, how, and things like that, your skills, competencies, and everything. Now, when you look at a French format, there is a photograph too. It is better if you can have a photograph. Again, photographs, Rachit, I'm sure you agree to, that has to be a formal passport size photograph, right? It can't be a selfie on a beach and things. When we get such things, we laugh, we have moments of fun, but it is very difficult to take that kind of a person seriously. So for you to get that kind of attention, please make sure it is a formal passport size photograph with white background, should be very nice. And then you come to all these things. I have already spoken about your personal details and the chronological order in which you have achieved things. So this is a one-page document in which you are trying to put all the facts about life, your life, that is your profession, your internships, your educational qualifications, skills, and competencies. Hobbies, yes, you can add them. Nobody is stopping you from that. It will give a bit more insight into your life, but hobbies cannot be like what is it, Rachit? What is the usual thing now that is going on? Social
media influencer or restaurant critique, or because we're not in the generation of outdoor games anymore, so I don't think people write that anymore. But we're in the online generation, so.
And also, when you write about your hobbies, please be very specific as if you, and honest about it. If you say that you're into reading, you just can't, just because reading is a hobby that is taken seriously, you can't put it there. And just because we are Indians, I mean, we can't say that I'm into cricket. Even I'm into cricket, but I only watch cricket on the TV when it is live and things like that. So when you have played, if you have some level, if you have some kind of expertise in these fields, that's when you put these as hobbies. And if somebody asks you, for example, if you say that you are into reading, and if somebody asks you, who's your favorite author? And if you have to think, scratch your head for some time and then give an answer, it will make a very bad impression. So please be very honest and don't put such irrelevant things or fake things. Now, when we say, there was also one thing that we were thinking about, if there is a gap year between your studies and your job and things like that, be honest. And if you can provide some justification to it, please put it in one single bullet point too. It will help. For example, after your 12th, you might have taken one gap year to write competitive exams, which is absolutely perfect, normal. We want you to add that and then say which were the exams that you were trying to take and then go on it. Now, before we run out of time, let's just go to the sum up the whole thing. That is, consistency in use of font is something that is appealing to the eye. So please keep it at that. If there are anything that you want to highlight, then please highlight with it being bold. Now, most recent experience first, we have already talked. Spelling and grammar check. This is absolutely mandatory, because you are not writing anymore. You're typing it on your laptops, and then the software itself gives you indications as to where you're going wrong. So there is no way that you can go to that PDF version, because we don't want it to be deleted at some point of time. Please make sure that you send it. LinkedIn. Yes, this is something that is very important these days. All of us have our LinkedIn profiles, and it is better to give that. So if anybody wants to go and check about the authenticity of whatever you have written, or to get more information about you, they can always go to that. New Times in fonts, again, New Times Roman or Arial is something that is very decent and thing. No long sentences, please. In CV, at least put it in bullet points. Irrelevant and old information, as I have already spoken, not required. Photo has to be a formal one. And then when we say avoid showing gaps, we want justifications about the gaps. We're not asking you to fake about that. If I have 2 years of gap, then I'll have to have some kind of justification. Please make sure that those are there. Now, with this, I think we are also coming to the end of our thing. Yeah, or the online tools. On your screen, you can see the online tools for writing your CV. There are many examples. Again, as Rachit told us some time back, you don't have to go to plagiarism. It is not required. You have to be original. As I told you, take the skeletal format and whatever catches your eye, and build it up as you are. It is your personality. It is you who is going into this whole thing about showcasing your CV and SOP. So make it relevant to what you are. I think with that, we have generally completed everything. Yeah, SOP for scholarships, Rachit.
Yeah, just to add very quickly that, if you're writing for scholarships and everything, remember that you're talking about why are you choosing France and how the scholarship will definitely help you. Explain where do you want to go, which French university has accepted you, where you've been accepted, and what makes you a worthy candidate for the scholarship. we really want to understand as to what makes you a suitable candidate to receive the benefits. So try to write an SOP from that perspective and explain your SOP in a very Q&A format. I think that really helps. If you look up online on canva.com, like as Pasudha mentioned, there are different there are different SOP formats for scholarships as well. So please try to have a look at those ones too. And I believe that will be useful. But the element behind writing a scholarship SOP is that you must identify how will the scholarship help you in the long run. And that is what you can really keep in mind while doing the scholarship SOP across. So with this, we come to an end to the CV and SOP session. We thank you for joining us today. And thank you so much for being a part with us for this session across. We hope the insights helped you. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Campus France team in India. We are at your disposal and we are ready to help you. We're happy to help you across with any kinds of questions or any kinds of suggestions or advice you would like to have on your CV and SOP. And please try to keep everything we told you in mind, because we've really seen a lot. Vasudha has seen really a lot, many compared to me as well. And what we're trying to tell you is really will help you in the long run when you apply to schools or apply for jobs. So the recordings will be shared for these sessions online, so please do not hesitate. But use the Choose France tool. We are online till 9 p.m. and speak to other representatives that are present. You can also speak to our team, which is present, and you can really take up your questions as a part of those sessions across.
Bonne chance is what we have to say. All the very best. Thank you for being a wonderful audience. Bye-bye.